Welcome to Love and Life. I'm Dr. Karen Anderson Abril here with my co-host,
Pastor Elliot Anderson.
And Love and Life is your place to hear conversations grounded in psych research, psychotherapy,
and biblical truth
to help us thrive in love and life.
All right, Love and Life family and listeners, we're excited to have a special guest this morning, a good friend of mine who I met again through the external means of conferences and work with churches and working with clients who come through the show, which is always really cool that Karen in her prophetic foreshadowing kept saying, Elliot, get on. There's a lot of ministry here. You're going to be able to influence people. And I was like, I don't know, Karen, I don't know. It's social media stuff, whatever. And man, am I thankful I went on because I've met a lot of people like our guest today. Dani, who is now a wonderful, godly sister and friend to me and Angie and the family. And in one of those bizarre circumstances, Karen, I don't think I told you this, Dani actually lives in an area right where Sarah, our recent adopted daughter, went to school. So they have a connection as well that's really cool. One of the times Dani was out the house, they were having their Chicago connection. You could hear it in their voices. They were starting to get the city vibe going. But I recently connected with Dani. We were both at a wedding this weekend, and I saw her again. And Karen and I have been talking about, man, who can we get beyond the show who's an experienced mother, experienced woman of faith that can talk about that female mother perspective for what Karen and I have addressed the last two episodes, all about keeping the marriage and the partnership as the primary amidst the beautiful gifts of God, the children that come in, and how that changes and forces some adjustment and some also alterations as this precious, precious gift from the Lord is amongst us. Dani is a mother of three. I'll say that up front before we let her introduce herself, but that's our special opportunity today, Karen.
Yeah, Dani, thank you so much for joining us and for being willing to share your experience and your heart and what you might have. You know, we designed this series specifically for some people in our family, namely Warren's daughter, Amy, and my stepson's wife, Jackie, who are pregnant. And these babies are coming in a couple of weeks, one in end of June and one in July. And we thought about what could we offer to support them. And just from what we know from obviously Elliot's personal experience of having 4 babies in 2 years, and then from what we know about family systems and what research shows, how can we navigate this amazing but also amazingly challenging stage of the family life cycle where we go from that husband and wife role to now mother and father role. Those are 4 roles for 2 people to embody, and there's a lot therein. So thank you so much for joining us, because I know it's not always easy to be like, well, let's get real about this. But I think in that realness and that vulnerability is where people can really glean some support and feel that that someone else has walked through what they're about to walk through.
That's so great. So this is like a gift to your family.
That's one element, yes. Besides all of our listeners.
It that way.
I love it though. Like, it's great to have it's scary because you've never embarked on it before, right? Like, it's just new, it's changed, and you give it thought, and then you don't give it thought, and then you're there. And then you start to figure it out. Yeah. So would you like me to introduce myself?
Absolutely, please. And a little bit about when your kids came.
Okay. So I'm Dani, and it's really great to be here, and, Elliot, to your family. And so Karen, I'm just happy to be here and chat with you guys. I live in the city and have raised our children in the city. So my husband and I both grew up in, the country. He was a small town. I was small town, but even more, my family lives out in the country. So our families of origin were a little different than maybe what we've been able to create and bring and make together. We have 3 amazing children. I don't know if everyone says that, they probably do, but I think they're pretty awesome. We have a 20-year-old son, Clark. We have a 16-year-old daughter, Lily, and we have a 12-year-old son, Crosby.
And there's a special nuance, Karen, and our listeners, to Dani's heart for families and couples embarking on raising a family is because her husband's a police officer as well. And so it's the whole first responder civil servant reality of that marriage dynamic. And as our last 2 episodes, Dani, we talked a lot about the structure that's necessary and creating new systemic and new structures. And yet the reality of the structure for a police officer is not as flexible, not as adaptable, and already creates extra challenges. Talk a little bit about that aspect as Clark came into the world and you were a brand new mama figuring that piece out.
Well, yeah, Clark came with an interesting set of dynamics, as every family has a story, right? And every kid has a story, however they come to you. It's funny, Elliot, that you would start with that, because like I took some notes and did some reflection. I think with my mom this morning, just trying to recollect back. I mean, it's 20 years plus, well, 21,
Yeah.
So I'm just
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
think back, like, what's it been like? Like, what did
Sure.
we do? What didn't work? But Clark was actually born on his due date against my, I was like, oh, he will not be born on his due date. Who is ever born on their due date? I was like, I'm not going to talk about the due date. It's not a thing. He was ironically born on his due date. We were at a hockey game, it's fine. I ate crow there. It's fine. But he kind of came into the world and everything was awesome, great delivery. We were super excited. We wanted a girl, so we were both a little like, but we were really thankful. It was just a minute.
Wait, does Clark know this?
Oh yeah.
Does Clark know this, or is this
yeah.
like being revealed right now in Love and Life for the first time? Okay.
No, because that boy will forever be, he's the first. He's
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
Not the, they each have their own beauty. I mean, wait till I talk about Lily. I was like, you're a girl. We both were.
Aw.
We wanted a girl in our lives, and we got one, and God was good to us. But Clark
Aw.
was born, great delivery, everything so well that we were like, peace out. We want to go home within 24 hours. And then all of a sudden things went differently. He was born with, he was diagnosed, it snowballed real fast. Somebody came in, checked his heart. He was born with there's top 10, the cardiology, American Association of Cardiology or whatever. It's one of the top 10 heart defects that requires open heart surgery. It's very serious. And I went from how you have those core memories of this is what I want to say. I believe, and I know without a doubt, that him being born in this manner at this time shaped who I became as a mother in an instant. You know what I mean? I can't even, I have chills still thinking and talking about. Clark is super healthy. He's 20. He's going into the Navy. For what it was, when God allows sometimes these things into your life, they're, I don't know, they're journeys to grow you. And, they're not always easy, but, met a cardiologist, and she basically was like, yeah, your son's going to need open heart surgery within 4 months. So I went from counting fingers and toes and soaking in this new baby to your heart is broken.
Yeah.
Your heart is not whole. So we, I would say as a couple, so just to bring it back to your question about being flexible and the schedule and everything, he was our first. Andy was able to take some time off. I think we were in shock. I'm sure we were. We had family coming in, and I have all sorts of opinions and reflections on what I would do differently and how I would handle things.
Right.
And, we were pretty young. We were both 27. So kind of young to start a family. And my husband was in the thick of he worked for the department at that time. I think that was 2004. So he's probably 2-3 years on the job. He worked for 7 years in the south side of Chicago. Worked nights, pretty much almost he's 20 plus years on the job now, and lots of different roles, but we always call it 7 and 7. We were 7 years of pretty intense situations, nights, overtime, a lot of gone. He usually was able to take time to be present when he needed to be there, but for the most part, he was gone at night. So I would say that being flexible because of we had to choose to be flexible. I had to choose as a new mom to be flexible, to be like, there's a lot of the first responder life is just, you'll hear me talk about this. I think it's just going to come up as I reflect on like what our life was like. It really worked around his job. I stayed home for a few years, but I would say that, Clark being born the way that he was kind of shocking to both of us. It drew us together in a way that maybe just like a normal birth and delivery may not have. But
Yeah.
I have vivid memories of just, I mean, I wish that maybe we had had the same, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, drive or like pull to do this over our other babies. But like, because of the defect, I can tell you I have core memories of like, he slept right between us. And I know everybody's got their thing, so we don't have to like, we'll leave that on the side, but like,
Yeah.
between us, because like, as a mama, I was like, I need to know if this kid's going to breathe. I
Yeah.
think we both slept, hands on his chest, right next to him for 4 months,
Yeah.
and we prayed over him constantly, every night, prayed over him. But like, when I think of urgency is the word I was looking for. I don't know if we prayed as urgently over other ones. So that's one thing I would say.
Yeah. Sometimes the reality of the emergencies or the stressors, as you've heard on the podcast before, Dani, Karen, and I talk a lot about the crises of life can really be cementing for a couple and for a family.
Yeah.
And so, at least in the initial start of the challenges of a Chicago police officer's schedule, and for our non-Chicagoans, the South Side of Chicago is tough. It is a very difficult, tough area. And so, a very challenging systemic, and maybe the Lord used that crisis and thankfully healed Clark, because we know many crises that don't get healed, at least on the earth side, they get healed by heaven. That was helpful. It allowed that. And for our listeners, Dani's a very strong-willed, passionate firstborn. So very natural in her structures and in her systemics, just so people understand when she talks about being flexible, that's true, but she's also in a gifted area. Her ability to lay things out, to administrate, to keep systemics going. So that I'm just letting our listeners know that was a benefit for you, Dani, to kind of sink into your normal firstborn nature of, I'm going to get this thing structured up.
Yeah. We don't know what we don't know. Like, I think that, of course, I read a ton of books and we did birth class and we did all this stuff, but like, I don't know if you're ever really prepared to be a parent. And then you're like, what were we thinking?
Yeah, boom, here it is. Yeah.
Like, this is
and then you get a special emergency.
Yeah. And then we had a special emergency on top of it. But I mean, God is good, and he's good regardless of what our outcome is and what it was and what it's been. But Clark definitely added a dynamic. His entrance into the world created a dynamic that impacted how I responded as a mom. Like, I was with him at a doctor's appointment every week. I was with a pediatrician one week. I was with a cardiologist the next week. We were doing, echocardiograms. We were doing all the things. And they said things to us, like when they sent us off from the hospital, when we were allowed to go home, it's like, the first time you take a baby home, you're just like, if you're taking a baby just like as a new baby, and you're like, really? You're going to send us off? Like, we don't even know what we're doing. It's the weirdest feeling on the planet,
Yeah.
But you are, and you obviously were capable enough to get to that point. So here you are, you're leaving with this human, and you really don't know what you're going to do next. And you rely on the people around you, which you should, the people in your life. You listen, you take what you can, you leave what you can't, and you define your own path. And we left with instructions like, if he turns blue, you should call 911. If he was tetralogy of Fallot, so historically they have a significant hole in their heart. They have some other things going on. Their heart is overworking because of the flow of blood that just is basically like doing one of these things. So he wasn't supposed to get upset. I'm like, what? So he's not supposed to cry. Okay, that's a new dynamic. I wasn't really anticipating that one. But you know what?
Don't let your baby cry.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing, just to respond to you officially, is that because of Andy's schedule, our life as raising kids had to be flexible. We had to do things in, everybody else has 9 to 5 jobs, whatever you want to call it. It's what it feels like. Everybody, birthday parties, celebrations. They're on the weekend. They're at normal times when people aren't working. Um, we we had a tired dad in the house all the time. He was sleeping, which is normal. Not It's just what our life was, but we didn't know any
Yeah.
different. But we had to be quiet, so we had to leave the house. Like those were
Hmm.
not. I don't want that to sound negative. It was a dynamic that, as I look back now, with a 20-year-old, 16, and a 12-year-old, especially when I had 0, 4, and 8,
Hmm.
we were at the park a lot. We were on play dates a lot. And to be honest, I was parenting alone a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I looked at that as like part of the positive side, is that was what I was contributing to our family, like our
Yeah.
dynamics, right? This was his job. I like
Yeah.
totally supported it. I was proud of what he did. I knew it was stressful. Like, it wasn't perfect, but
Yeah.
that was my
Yeah.
heart behind, that was my heart usually.
It wasn't causing automatic division. I hear you saying it was just the reality of your circumstance and how to tie that together.
Yeah.
And one of the things Karen and I've talked a lot about in this context, and of course with our extreme scenario with the 4 babies, is how intentional you have to be there for, based on these realities. Our extreme with the 4 kids, your extreme with a baby with a significant heart issue and a husband whose schedule's really tough.
Mm-hmm.
Intentionality of trying to stay connected and try to have enough time together privately and have enough time together. And your parents and siblings weren't all in the Chicagoland, so you had to build other resources, church and otherwise. Talk about that adjustment a little bit, Dani.
Yeah. Back with Clark, I'll be honest, I don't totally remember what that was like. We had a lot more flexibility with Clark, I think, to be a little more back in the early years. I think you worked 7 days, and then it was a longer period. Now it's, you work 4, you're off 2, you work 4, you're off 2. So
Okay.
you're never off Friday and Saturday. You're never off Monday and Tuesday. So there was a lot of communication around, okay, wait, what's your schedule again? And I'll be
Mm-hmm.
honest, that added a dynamic of like, why can't you remember this? Do you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we figured it out. After a while, it was like, well, there were things we probably could have flexed a little better on. Like, it would have been nice if I could have gotten just a full on calendar and I knew they have a day off group
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. But if he took time off, um, we had to talk about taking time off. Sometimes he just took it off. Our families were not as involved as maybe they would have been, say, if we lived like, in this, it's 4 hours either way. So I would
Mm-hmm.
say that our day-to-day lives interacting with our extended families was really different.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe then it was just more, they just weren't in our everyday lives. We saw my family a
Yeah.
little bit more, and I have a little bit of regret about that. I was more comfortable. I mean, just to be honest, I was more comfortable with my family. And I think his parents were kind of in the medical field. And I think there was a layer of like, you did it your way. This is my thinking. Like, you did it your way. Can we do it? Can we just do it the way that we need to? And sometimes I felt kind of, there's just a lot of opinions and a lot of, especially with Clark's heart. And like, there was definitely like a push pull there that I felt that was underlined. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I was able to, like, to be totally clear. My mother and father-in-law are firstborns. Andy and I are firstborns. And I'm like
Oh.
big into,
Yeah.
I think that's a dynamic we should always acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've
Yes.
raised 3 firstborns. I really do. They're 4 months apart. And if you've read anything about birth order,
Yeah.
so now think of our family, what I just described to you.
That's a lot of firstborns.
We have 5 leaders in our home
Yeah.
that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes really need to take a step back. So my heart now, Karen, is so different because I hear what you're saying, and it takes humility to swallow a little bit, to know how to communicate. I don't always know how to communicate in the moment, but I'm learning, even with my in-laws, to come back and say, listen, my current family circumstances, I had a situation, they were in my home. I was very uncomfortable with the way someone was, my father-in-law was doing something. I've matured. So like, I realized I need to communicate. This cannot be a wedge. Do you know what I mean? Where like
Mm-hmm.
back then it was like, why'd you do that? But I was 27.
Yeah.
So there's just this
Yeah.
dynamic of like, they have wisdom to offer. And just because they're saying it doesn't mean I have to do it. I can I can
Yeah.
be respectful. I don't have to be less than. So some of that, in my opinion, how I received the information, might have been more about me, about what I was
Yeah.
able to take in. I don't know.
But also a firstborn I mean, again, I don't know your in-laws, obviously, but I also know that firstborns can be very direct. And so, and you being a
Some.
firstborn, be like, oh no, I'm the one who's direct in this
Oh,
scenario.
she's a shark too. She's a shark. Just be rest
So,
assured.
so it could have been, to your point, so many firstborns.
Yeah.
And firstborns, I mean, they just tend to think they know it all. And
Yes.
so that could have
Yeah.
been
Oh, there's Angie or Warren and say, well, that's because we do.
Yeah.
That's how Warren and Angie would respond. Because we do know more than you middlers and lastborns.
You know what's crazy though? Like as a firstborn, I think I'm weird in that way. Like I don't think I know it all. Like I'm pretty quick to be like, that's just not how I operate. I don't think I know it all, but I really get rubbed the wrong way when people do think they do.
But what we did hear, Dani, is something I talked about with Angie's story. That when she needed a lot of help, it was a little harder for her to ask for help than it was for me or Karen would in those scenarios.
100%.
That part.
My biggest issue, I would say hands down, I would start to I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't want to ask for help. But what the crazy thing is that my nature is to want to help others. So like, that's probably one of the ways that I love other people is to want to step in and help. Do you know what I mean? To offer that support.
A few years ago, I started having trouble falling asleep, and I started taking melatonin because I thought it was a natural way to try to relax myself, calm myself down, and go to sleep. But it turns out that as a hormone supplement, melatonin can disrupt our other hormones, and we can build up an immunity to it. So when we started partnering with the wellness company, I was super excited to try their melatonin-free sleep aid called Restful Sleep. It includes passion flower, chamomile, valerian root, among other herbs and natural ways to help calm us down and get us ready to go to bed. I've been using it for a couple months now, and Restful Sleep helps my mind and body quiet themselves and ease into sleep. If you've ever had insomnia, you know how brutal it is. The wellness company's Restful Sleep can help. Head over to twc.health/lovelife and enter promo code LOVELIFE at checkout for 15% off your entire order. That's twc.health/lovelife and promo code LOVELIFE for 15% off your entire order. We haven't addressed the birth order thing, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because we do have two firstborn mothers to be.
Oh,
Jackie
really?
is a firstborn, and Amy is a firstborn. Yes.
These are their firsts also?
Mm-hmm. They're not 27 though. So maybe, to your point that you've reflected on, that maybe there was a bit of your response that was inherent to being 27. These moms are in their 30s. So maybe they'll be
good for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the research does show the older.
Don't side with Karen, Dani. Side with me. I'm the early marriage guy. She's the late marriage guy.
Well, yeah. Well, no, but the research does show that the older parents tend to be, obviously, to your point, Dani, more mature, a little bit. Just they've navigated more waters through life in general, and that can generalize to parenting.
Let's move to the second time now. Now you get your girl.
Oh.
And now you're moving to the next layer and next level. Give us some reflections on that process, and then adjustments. How soon was Andy out of the South Side once Lily was born, and what kind of adjustments there again and adaptions were necessary?
I'm trying to think, having a second was interesting. This time around, it's like, got to have mom there because I've got another kid. My mom came the first time, but it was like more just to entertain me.
For fun. Yeah.
I loved my sister and I both. I feel like we just absolutely loved, we're born to be mamas and are so blessed and thankful to have had that, opportunity. But Lily, so she was, I won't go into the whole birth story, but born on the 4th of July. Andy's on the job. It is literally, if you've ever lived in the city of Chicago, we lived in Logan Square at the time. We were top deck. And the fireworks start as soon as dusk begins. So she was 10 days overdue. This girl, I'm telling you, had been hot out. He's working. It's getting later. My mom's like, "Are you in labor?" I'm like, "I'm in labor," but I don't know. I just kept pushing it off. I was in deep labor, way too deep. Should have been at the hospital. Andy's home. I could hear the lights and sirens. His buddy Steve, lights and sirens. I heard it pulling up to the front. We've got fireworks going off, and that's how this little mama came into the world, like 10 or so, on the 4th of July. So we were over the moon.
And she is a little firecracker, is she not?
She's a ginger. She's a ginger, Karen.
We love a ginger. We have a ginger.
Yeah. So my mom was really happy. I was like, really? She was born. I didn't want her born on the 4th of July. Everything went the way I didn't want it, except for the sheer fact that she was a little girl. I just felt like God just really, I don't know. It was just a gift. It's a joy to have a little girl, and she was really precious to us.
Yeah. So some of the elements of his schedule now were, you were used to it enough that adding a second child didn't overly stress the systemic.
No, I really don't think so. I really don't think the systemic was shocked with Crosby.
Sure.
And it wasn't Crosby. It was timing. It was Lily was.
Well, let's go to that one. Let's go to the.
Yeah.
Not that we're not giving Lily good airtime, but
no, I know. I feel so guilty now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
She's awesome and she's wonderful, but we'll get to the systemic.
But she's
so
the
that
middle
we can,
child, Elliot. There's always
Yeah,
the
I
fewest
know.
pictures in the photo albums of the middle child, right?
That's why we make ourselves known.
Yeah.
And
but
Lily does that well
going
too.
from man to man to his own defense is what happens. It's
Yeah. And Crosby, I think with Crosby, there were just a lot of different dynamics. I did go back to work. I did like some contracting work out of our house. I was always balancing like that during the day and naps and like that kind of thing. But I would say I was primary caregiver, just with, our life. And I went back to work probably when Lily was like 14 months old. And, I just to back up before I start with Crosby, like, so Andy worked nights and we made the decision. I mean, it was just, we didn't have a choice. We were feeling a little underwater, and I had a degree and I could work. And I just felt like, so let's talk about this for a second. Expectations. Like, I had expectations. My mom stayed home. She raised 5 kids. It was a different lifetime. My dad, was an attorney. He was a primary breadwinner. They were very like male and female in their roles. That's what I brought into family of origin from my family of origin. Andy's family, dad owned his own business for a long time. He's a physical therapist, successful, really well liked and known, and still working. Both our dads are. And my mother-in-law stayed home all throughout. Never. I mean, she worked, I think, before Andy was born. So we kind of brought that in, but I would say that was a topic that we hadn't fully fleshed out before we started our family. When I chose to go back to work, I mean, we talked about it, but I knew he wanted me to go back to work. And it was, I wish that I had been a little more accepting of it in my heart. I knew I needed to go, so I went. And I had friends that like were struggling financially, where the mom was like, well, I'm just staying home. And I don't know if this is as much of a topic anymore, because I don't see myself as a stay-at-home mom anymore. Like, I'm a full-time working mom, and I have been since Lily was like 14 months old. So I was in and out of work full time. But what I wanted to point out is that when we shifted that dynamic, so Andy's working nights, and whatever his shifts were, 6 to 6, he worked nights because it worked for our family. So I would say, where did Andy give? He worked hard and he compromised his sleep. And we know that a sleep compromise impacts so much. It impacted, intimacy. It impacted his perspective. It impacted a lot. Food. Yeah. It impacted his body. And I feel like we just did it. That's the part that I look back and those are my regrets. I mean, when you're in the thick of it, it's very hard. So I think it's so important to have people around you and keep community, as we talk about. But so I go back to work. Let's say he gets home at 6. I've got to leave the house at 7. We had this little it had like a patio, French doors off the kitchen and a dining room. He would literally, so remember, we just talked about Lily. She's 14 months old. Clark's 3, 4, whatever, 4.5. He would close the doors in, lay on the futon. And I'm telling you, it was like the size of my dining room, like not big at all. And the TV was in there. So like that was a
Yeah.
dynamic for a long time. That was hard for me. I hated it,
Yeah.
but I'd be home by 2. He'd end up taking a nap. So we were a lot of like tag team.
Yeah.
A lot.
Handing off the baton.
Yes, and
Mhm.
we did it. I look back and feel like we did it. We did it.
Mhm.
But I know what suffered.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our relationship.
Yeah. And then just as the Crosby came, now you're saying it's the zone defense, not the man-to-man anymore, and that adds a whole nother layer.
Oh yeah. So like let me we just got to be into things like one, Crosby was unplanned. Like really unplanned. Like I was on an IUD. I probably took like 2 weeks. I literally had just qualified for the Boston Marathon. Like bucket list. I'm in my zone. I was like, I did it.
Mhm.
The Crosby is like, I feel like we're like we really got a little off kilter, to be honest, when I think about it. So he, and not him, the addition. So
Yeah.
I probably for 2 weeks was in denial, like took like probably 20 pregnancy tests. Andy finally was like 2 weeks later was like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, I didn't even want to tell him because I didn't want it to be a real
Yeah.
thing. I went and grabbed, I
Yeah.
saved them. I went and grabbed them all and I threw them I threw them down on the island. And I was like, this is what's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I understand.
So fast forward, pregnancy, we come around, we're excited. We're like, here we are. Lily's a July birthday. Crosby's the end of July. So Lily's 4. Clark is almost 8. Lily is 4. And now we're expecting this guy. He was born at home, which was amazing. And we were supposed to move. We were moving from our condo to I don't remember where Andy worked at the time. I think he might have been in our like plain clothes, like a tack team. So he had weird hours. That is a month of days. That is a month of nights. And then it's a month of relief, which is days and nights. And it rotates. So your body, your family, your schedule, it's complete mayhem. It's just never
Looney bird.
consistent. And there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of wait, what, there's a lot of room for error. So Crosby's born. We're moving. Andy really, really wanted to move a week later, and I did not want to do it, but felt like he was needing it, and so we moved up to this neighborhood that we're in now. We rented a home. Those are life transitions in the midst of we have a new baby, we have a crazy schedule, we're in a new neighborhood, we're adjusting to 3 kids. I'm trying to think. Before I found out I was pregnant with Crosby, I started working at the job I'm working at now. So I started the job, qualified for Boston, some probably like that, was traveling a bit for work, got pregnant. Then we moved. So I'm like, just the storm is brewing right now. Just to, I haven't talked about this much, but we weren't intentional enough about dating. We were a little more like grasping at, when we had the time, and our time was shared with others, shared with friends, we didn't have a lot of our downtime. Sometimes was like, we're dead and we're watching TV, but like, we're not connecting. I mean, I have pictures, I have evidence. We went on dates. We just didn't go that much. We didn't. So like a dynamic I haven't added is like, we were always stretched financially. So then it was like, we could have been more creative about our dates and intentional about our time. So I guess that's the thing that I think is, that's the thing I want to call out, that I think lessons learned. And I think looking back, like, so 8 months later, we're at Boston because I'm not going to miss this opportunity in my life. And like, he would come home and the babies would be asleep and I would get out the door and run. I ran with friends. I did long on the weekends, and he never, that was the one thing that like I did. So got to Boston, it was 2013. So we're at the bombing. And so think about what I've just described to you of like, what's been like life changes in our life, a third child that's added a layer of dynamics. I'm in a new job. We've moved. Now we're at Boston. We're separated. I think I always struggled with like acknowledging the PTSD from that event. but I think
Mm.
sure there had to have been some dynamic level layer of like for a long time I didn't even want to be near someone with a backpack. I didn't want to be in an elevator with someone with a backpack.
Mm.
I was at the finish line. I just crossed and they went off behind me. So I was close enough. I mean, I wasn't impacted. Like it was hard.
Yeah.
This is the PTSD part that feels really uncomfortable to talk about. I had a boss who was so in tune to like talking about this that I don't know if I ever would have acknowledged it, but her bringing it up made me realize just because we weren't hit doesn't mean we weren't impacted. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
like a peripheral of, so just another layer.
Yeah, it's kind of a really terrible word picture of a season of life, a bomb going off.
Yeah.
Right. And how that impact is so much broader and wider than just, gosh, thank the Lord I was done.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
wasn't at that particular site, but knowing the devastation that happened and the lives that are lost, it doesn't, and just the PTSD from Andy's job. You know, I work with a lot of cops and they don't like to talk about PTSD a whole lot. And I understand why. They got to go out the next night and go again. So just the amount of, lies, and Andy comes and speaks to my trauma class, Karen. So comes in each year and does a great job, and he's real and raw with the students, and they love it. And because they can ask him anything, and he gives good answers and says, "This is the reality. This is what's going on."
And a psychologist sorry, Ellie, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go right ahead. I was good.
Someone that the psychologist I recently shared with you, I've found his work. He says he doesn't want to use the word post-traumatic stress disorder anymore. He wants to say post-traumatic stress response because it is not right.
Yeah, that totally resonates.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is not disordered to be a human being who is witnessing and experiencing, or a bomb going off behind you is traumatic. We cannot experience trauma without having a response. And to say that response is disordered, I feel is so dehumanizing and so lacks so much empathy. Yeah. So I'm just taking issue because words are powerful.
No, I 100% agree with you, because then we're like, wait, I'm broken. It immediately goes to I'm broken. There's something wrong with me. But like God created our bodies to be like, wait a minute, we have a fight or flight in us. We have do you know what I mean? We have a self-protection means. We have so many amazing innate things in our bodies that like to respond to situations like that so we can survive, right? When I think about our life, and like, one, I think exercise is so critical and an outlet. Like Andy, I didn't talk about this, but Andy, I wasn't real great at like other than the running. I really didn't take time to like feed into me. I just was like in the moment taking care of the kids. And I feel like taking time for yourself is so important and so critical to figure out like, what does little Dani need? Does she need quiet? Because she's having a lot of overly anxious responses and angry thoughts. Like maybe she just needs to go for a walk. Do you know what I mean? A weighted walk, like finding what you need and having the space to be able to do that. Just because you have a new little one or an 8-year-old, like they can wait and they'll be okay and they'll be better for it. I didn't know how to do that very well, but Andy, while his schedule was really crazy, one thing that he was pretty consistent with is he always went hunting in the fall. He always planned his furloughs for the fall, and he had a golf trip with his cousins that he always went on in the spring, and he would go do those. And I had some issue with it over the years, because sometimes it was like come hell or high water, he was going. But at the same token, the positive side is, he had a really tough job. So yeah, sometimes I wasn't overly gracious about it, and I wish I could have been a little bit more, but I think it was just a balance of understanding my needs and his needs. And
so would you say, like, looking back, because I think this is a teachable moment, maybe just looking back, that if you had found some other ways to carve out that time for yourself, then other than the running, which I think is great, but at the same time, it sounds like he had those established, this is happening with the cousins, this is happening with the hunting. And if you'd been able to find something like that, then maybe you wouldn't have felt, at times, it sounds like you felt a little resentful of his time away.
A lot resentful.
So we have to take that on ourselves to say, okay, I need to then create something similar so that I don't feel that resentment.
Yeah, I agree. Like that's exactly what needed to happen. I think where my struggle was is I didn't feel free to do it. I couldn't give myself
Mm.
the freedom to walk away from what I thought the kids needed. So I think I don't know how to psychoanalyze that for myself. I
Yeah.
just didn't. I'm better at it now, but
Hmm. At the time, did you? I mean, I can imagine again, not having been a mother, but I can imagine the mama bear, and you would be like, well, because that would entail maybe establishing, especially with Andy's work schedule, having someone come in, whether it's in-laws or your mom and dad or friend, aunt, uncle, to watch your babies. And again, they have 4 years between them, so there's a lot of you're not dealing with just toddlers or just
yeah,
diapers. You're dealing with school
yeah,
age and
yeah.
pre-K and then infant, and so maybe you didn't trust that anyone else could come in and take care of your little ones. Was it that you didn't feel you had freedom to give yourself some independent time or time with girlfriends because you're like, my kids need me and there's no one else who can, and of course oldest has a heart situation, so no one else can really be here for my kids. I can't really entrust anyone with my children.
I did over time. I know I did
Yeah.
because like my mom I trusted. I think it comes back to Karen. I don't know if it was trust. I think there could have been moments of that, like when they were younger or whatever. But once I was at work full time, like we had sitters. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Hmm.
Young 20 something girls that's what I could afford. Um, when I traveled for work, sometimes my mom came to support Andy with his job, but he like went into dad mode. He like totally kept it covered and he would give me texts. His support allowed me to feel comfortable to leave. So I really only ever left for work. I don't know. I think some of it was like I didn't know how to ask for help, truthfully.
Yeah,
I think it was
yeah, goes back to you.
less about that. And
Yeah.
it was really like here we have lots of friends, but no one was like one thing I used to say, my sister and I have said this a lot, but I I was just telling Elliot this on the phone yesterday. Like we were at a wedding. I saw a young couple. Now, granted, they have the dynamics that we have. He's police. And I was like, I made sure she had my number. I pulled him close.
Mm,
Like I have other dynamics going on that we're not really talking about, but like, so my heart's really tender towards them and their relationship.
mm,
And I know some stuff that they've had to navigate as a police family that is really tough and they have young kids. I know what that was like. And I feel like having
mm,
older women, especially older women in your life that will turn around and give you their time it's gold. And I
mm.
didn't know how to ask for help. I wish there had been a
Yeah,
woman in my life that would have been like, let me do this for you. I'm going to take the kids.
yeah,
You go get a cup of coffee. Go for a walk. I'm just going to grab them for
yeah.
a minute. Do you know what I mean? Like I do that for my neighbor. I
Sure.
barely know my neighbor, but I love her little guy Finn. And I'm always like, we talk to him. We bring him a balloon on his birthday. Like we just do little things. And
Oh.
now he calls me Danny, and he always wants to talk to me. He rides his little Strider bike over. But like I just
Yeah.
want her to know, like we're here for you.
Hmm.
You know, you're not alone.
Hmm.
Anyways, I felt
Hmm.
alone a lot, and it could have been by my own
Yeah.
doing.
Mm,
Yeah. The realities of a police family
Yeah.
has a lot of that dynamic. And then the realities of personality, temperament, firstborn nature.
Yeah, I think
A
it
lot
was
of that speaks into it as well.
I think it
But
was
I
that.
love the ministry piece of it, right? Saying, okay, certain things in my systemic didn't go quite the way I would have wished they would have gone. And there were some consequences about that, but I can speak in others now. And I can, 2 Corinthians 1, I can give comfort to others with the comfort I've received, even if I received that comfort post experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Dani has a fantastic relationship with her in-laws now, Karen. It's just really
oh
beautiful.
wow.
And the mentoring and connection
It's
with her
true.
mother-in-law is fantastic. Yeah.
She's
Just
phenomenal. They're
awesome.
phenomenal. Like my
Yeah.
father-in-law's in a space where he's over the years, my father-in-law, if there was something I could tell you, that no matter how I acted, and man, was I a stinker. I'm not kidding. I won't even want to tell you. I'm embarrassed to even say it, but I will tell you this: the one thing that has spoken so clearly to me about them is their faith is so strong. They love Jesus, and my father-in-law I call him dad now, like, and which is funny.
Mm,
I just want to, and I probably
yeah.
will, regardless of what happens. But he would check in on me, even when I felt estranged from them or tried to
Mm.
be. he would be like, "Hey, I'm praying for you. How's it going? I'm thinking about you." He was so loving, and he still is. Right now, he's a little quiet because of our dynamics. But my mother-in-law, we text almost every morning. We've read through like a bazillion Max Lucado books, which is like her thing. I'm not totally into them, but like her practice, it's a practice of her life of faith. She just reads something light before bed. So we just talk about it. We text in the morning. Hey, I read this. Oh, that was really good. Oh, I didn't finish the chapter. I mean, it's just a way to connect. And like, it's gotten to,
Really sweet.
yeah, it's amazing. I'm thankful for it. So, and
Yeah.
I take
Wonderful.
advice now, and I'm not so like sensitive. Like it's just because someone has advice doesn't mean like, it's not a negative to yourself. It's more about like,
Yeah.
I'm just a more confident me, and I'm okay with hearing what other people have to say because I might learn something.
Absolutely. Well, we are so appreciative, Dani, for you coming on. Super helpful and beneficial. And all of us can recognize the faith element being such a significant piece. And we certainly hope that's the same for others and our listeners. But if not, they could get a hold of any of the three of us
Yeah.
and walk through that. I know Dani well enough, Karen, to say this out loud on the air that if someone wants to reach out to you or me and get a blessing or a prayer or something from Dani, she'd be glad to do that as schedule allows.
Yeah.
Help any of these young mothers, especially any young mothers in a police or fire systemic.
Dani, as we are wrapping up, are there any kind of thoughts that, as you were reflecting and ready to join us today, are there any kind of thoughts that you think, like to these young women who are about to give birth to their first, what would be your words of support and encouragement just based on you having 3 kids and being a mom yourself?
Yeah. I think that as I was like reflecting and preparing and just thinking about everything, it was easy to focus on maybe what I would have changed. There's things that we did and things that we would have changed, and I think that's still healthy, right? Like we have a rear view mirror. It's okay to look back in it, and I think taking time to reflect is really important, and taking time for ourselves. But I think what was sticking out to me as I did this full reflection of like, what was life like in the Sherman household and what was life like for us as a couple? I think that our marriage was like a backseat to our family, to our children. And you know, where we're at now is evidence of that, is a result. It's indicative of where the priorities were. I don't think we did it unknowingly, and so I think it really unknowingly and less intentionally. And so I think, man, if I were to speak life into a young mom and your loved ones in your life too, like that your marriage has to be a foundation. It's the primary, aside from the Lord needs to be first. My relationship with the Lord has to come first. And when my relationship with Jesus is where it should be, not because I cultivated it to be something specific, but because I'm humble enough to spend time with him and wait for him and listen to him, then the next thing is my marriage. It's like, how can my heart now is in a place where, so it's Jesus, it has to be Jesus first. And then it has to be my partner, my lifelong partner that I'm committed to. Right. And I think it's easy to talk about, it's easy to like, but to live it out, you know what I mean? And then to say, I'm sorry, and to like, make it a priority. Like what I would say to a new mom right now, I would say, what is it about your life right now that's working in your marriage and what is not? Where are the parts that need a little tune up? Meet with someone regularly. I don't know if people in your life know, your brother is phenomenal. He is gifted. Angie, I'm like blown away. I still to this day, I'm like, Angie approves everybody that he talks to. And I think she's the best. You know what I mean? I thank God that she approved us to ever meet your brother, because I'm a different woman as a result of understanding. Nobody ever said to me, you're a direct communicator. Your spouse is an indirect communicator. I didn't have someone giving me the tool tips. Well, that has transformed where we're at right now, going through the circumstances that we're going through. Our marriage is disintegrating. It's disintegrated. And I didn't understand that level of communication. Like we just communicated the way we knew how. So getting help, asking for help, being humble enough, staying close to the Lord, and then figuring out what those things are in your marriage that need to keep it strong and solid. Like get away from the kids, let somebody else take care of them. They're going to be okay. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Well, and just even from the jump, because with Clark's heart issue, you had your new mama, infant, and like you spoke to earlier, like they're gonna let us just drive home with this infant, and we're just gonna do this. So there's that totally expected normal anxiety, and then with the heart condition, and so from the beginning, you had outsized parenting concerns,
yeah,
which then probably took center stage, which would be totally understandable and normal to happen. And maybe it was hard for you guys ever to get back to having your marriage be in your family structure at the top and have the husband-wife relationship still be the most important. And because when that's at the top, then the parenting role is in place and the kids benefit. It sounds contradictory. It
yeah,
sounds like, how can you be such a good mom if you're putting your husband over your kids? Actually, that's the best way to be a mom, is to put your husband over your kids. And that, I'm sure, I've not experienced it, but I'm sure biologically every fiber of your being is like, but this baby's innocent. That man is not innocent.
No.
He's a grown adult.
No.
He can handle
Yeah.
himself. But
100%.
and again, yeah, there's gonna be times when the baby obviously vulnerable. You have to put this baby in the
Sure.
forefront, but it can't be the pattern, because then it becomes two people raising kids, and the two people that created these children now do not have that intimacy, that depth of connection as husband and wife.
Yeah, and I literally, you touched on it, because that's where my head is going next. I heard someone say, like, I mean, intimacy, sexual intimacy is not just sexual, but like, just to bring it up, it's a thing. It's a legitimate thing that keeps people together. And you know what? Don't compromise on it. Do whatever you got to do. Don't, there's a million things that keep people from, whatever, your own, whatever's going on in your head, your mind, your heart. It's like it's a critical piece to maintaining a really strong marital bond. And I also think, like I said before, like checking in, you got to have somebody in your life, the accountability, the marriage strengthening. I think we all need tune-ups, and to think we're going to just navigate it on our own, just day after day after day, 27 years later, you tune up your car all the time. You do updates on your house. Your marriage needs updates, and not just by yourself, because we don't know what we don't know. And then, so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something that can be taken for granted, especially when you've got little humans that depend on you.
Yeah.
And that is something, I mean, I think about it this way, like that sexual intimacy, which I think for women, oftentimes, I'm sure, again, you have this baby, your body's just been wrecked through
Destroyed.
Delivery. Like, I don't need anyone getting near me right now. I don't feel pretty. I don't.
No.
And yet, if we don't cultivate the sexual intimacy of our marriage, I mean, that's the one thing we do with the other human being on this planet that we don't give anyone else. Other people get our emotional intimacy, get our friendship, get our hugs, even get our, a lot of us get our opinions, get our conversation, get our intellectual curiosity. The one person on the planet gets this one piece of us. And if they're denied that piece of us because we let other things become more important. And
really well said, Karen.
Yeah.
That was a great way to say that. You're totally right. It's the one person on the planet that gets this piece of us, and that deserves that piece of us. That's how God designed it. So I don't know. I just want to, that to me those are reflections that I just want to share. So
yeah, no, thank you for sharing. And I was thinking, like, if you had these young mothers to be, and any in our community as well, not just the ones in our family, like if you had, like, let me give you a couple pieces of advice, what would they be? So thank you for sharing so much. Appreciate it.
yeah.
Amen to that. All right, let us bless this out here. Lord, thank you for my friend Dani. Lord, thank you for the way you even orchestrated and ordained us to have a relationship together, and contextually to be in ministry together, celebrate a wedding this past weekend together, just all the things, Lord, that you unite the body of Christ in marvelous and mysterious ways. We thank you for Dani's vulnerability and willingness to share elements of their journey, Andy and Dani's journey as parents, and in particular, Lord, the first responder parents, which adds another whole element of systemic challenge and structure and timing and rhythms, especially from a family that has firstborns everywhere. And so we pray, Lord, her story and her testimony has been a blessing. I know it has to Karen and I. We pray it's been a blessing to any of our listeners now. And pray, Lord, if there's even one lonely mother out there with a police or fire or EMT parent or partner, and they need help, that they would not feel alone. They'd reach out to one of us and at least have somebody to pray over, someone to pray with, someone to seek comfort with and concern with, and pray blessing on all the future mothers in our lives, especially the two in our systemic. And we just ask, Lord, for your blessing. Every child is a gift of life, and the gift of love and relationship and community is so wonderful and beautiful. May none of us, Lord, isolate or block or incidentally stop people from investing and blessing in our lives. We need the community together. We need the body of Christ. We need family and friends. Pray for blessing, Lord, for all. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen.
Love and Life with Dr. Karen and Pastor Elliot is produced by Tim May and executive producer Dr. Karen Anders-Nabel. For more information about Love and Life, please go to loveandlifemedia.com.